Alright, so we are working through the last question of the exercise, which is question 9. It reads, find the equation of the straight lines which pass through the point 1 and negative 2 and are tangent to the parabola with equation y equals x squared. Now, how are we going to approach this problem? Well, the first thing we want to do is visualize it. So I quickly here sketched up what y equals x squared is over here. And we know that we want a straight line that is tangent to this, which means it's going to touch it once. And this straight line is also going to pass through the point 1 and negative 2. So if I was to draw my options here, I would have a straight line like this, which you can see is going through my point and is touching my parabola once. And I would also have a point here. This is also another possibility. It could be coming this way. I'm still going through my point and I'm once again touching my parabola once. Now, this question actually got me really thinking for quite some time because I was approaching it using my gradient intercept model for a straight line. I was using this. And while it is possible to use this to solve the question, it's really quite difficult and you're going to have to use your calculator. A far better approach is, instead of using this form of a straight line, is to in fact use the gradient point form, which looks like this. Y equals mx minus x1. So into my y1 and x1 spots, I'm going to put my point 1 and negative 2. So I'm going to be left with y plus 2 equals mx minus 1. And then I'm going to rearrange, so it's y equals mx minus m minus 2. What I also know from this equation is the fact that I'm dealing with a straight line which touches my parabola once. So I know that it's intersecting my parabola. And whenever you're doing anything with intersections, you know that I could say, well, I can set my two equations equal to each other. So what I'm dealing with is that x squared at some point is going to be touching mx m minus 2, and furthermore I know that my discriminant is going to be equal to 0 because it only touches it once. So my discriminant can also be written like this. So b squared minus 4ac is going to equal to 1. I then am going to come back to my equation and solve it in such a way that I can get my a, b and c values from it, which I can then put into my discriminant. So I'm going to do some rearranging. I like to keep my x squared positive, so let me do that. I'll bring over my mx. I will then plus my m and plus that, and I'll be left with this. Perfect. So now that I'm here, I have x squared minus mx plus m plus 2 equals 0. I can now identify what my a, b, and c values are. My a value will be whatever's in front of my x squared, which will be 1. My b will be whatever's in front of my x, which is negative m. And my c will just be whatever's at the end here. It will be m plus 2. So now what I'm going to do is take my a, b, and c values and put them into my discriminant. So I'm going to be left with minus m squared minus 4a times b. And this is going to equal to 0 because it only touches it once. So I'm going to get m squared minus 4m minus 8 equals 0. Make sure you get your negatives correct here. So I've got negative m and negative 8. So that's good. So once I'm here, you might try to factorize it, and you'll soon realize that this actually doesn't factor quite nicely. So you've got two options. I could use my quadratic formula. That would be perfectly reasonable to use my quad formula. But let's try something different just for the time being. You can also solve m by completing the square. So I could also do it by completing the square. So let's just do that to do something different. Let me just do that, completing the square, because I'm lazy. All right. So I'm going to complete the square. So I'm going to go m squared minus 4m. I'm going to plus and then minus that. I'll be left with this. Then I'm going to scroll down. So I'm going to be left with m minus 2 squared minus 4 minus 8 equals 0. So it's going to be m minus 2. Let's take my constants over to the other side. So I'm going to get 12. Let me then square root that. I'm going to get plus or minus the square root of 12. So I'm going to get m is equal to 2 plus or minus 2 the square root of 3. And that is going to be my final answer in terms of what m is. So what I have done is found what my gradient is going to be for my lines. So now I'm going to come here and grab this, bring this down. Oops, this is the answer, so let's not look at this. That's what we're working towards. So, whoops, yes, that's right. So that is the equation of the straight line that we created before. So now what I can do is put my m into there. I can also put it into there to find what my straight line will be. So I'm going to get y is equal to 2 plus or minus 2 the square root of 3. Don't forget your brackets here. X. And I'm also going to get I'm also going to get minus brackets 2 plus or minus the 2 square root of 3, close my brackets, minus 2. Okay, so now you've got two options. I know for one of my lines I'm going to get the plus, and for the other one I'm going to get the negative. So let me do my positive one first. So I'm going to get y equals 2 positive 2 the square root of 3. Don't forget your brackets, x. Then I'm going to get minus 2 plus will become negative, if it's a plus, 2 the square root of 3 minus 2. So I'm going to be left with y equals 2 plus 2 the square root of 3, close brackets, x, minus 4 minus 2 the square root of 3. So that's what happens when I let my the sign in front of my square root be a positive. So don't get that mixed up. So that's going to be one of my straight lines. Perfect. Let me now figure out what it will be when it is negative. So if it was to be negative, I would get y equals 2 minus 2 the square root of 3, close brackets, x, minus 2 plus 2 the square root of 3 minus 2. So I'm going to get y equals 2 minus 2 the square root of 3, x minus 4 plus 2 the square root of 3. So those should be the equations of my two straight lines. And where you really might get tripped up in the end is changing those negatives. I really had to concentrate there for a second just in case I made a mistake. But let's now compare this to the answers. So if I look at the answers here, one of my answers should be y equals 2 plus 2 minus 4. Yes, so this right here corresponds to this. And then I should get 2 minus 2 minus 4 plus, yes. And this one down here corresponds to that. And that's how I solved this question. Hopefully this was helpful to you.